Heavy rainstorms unleashed relentless torrents across Albania over the past several days, driving the nation's flood crisis into a fully developed disaster that now grips cities from the southern mountains to the coastal plains. What began as a heavy rain event turned into a dramatic emergency as rivers and streams swollen beyond capacity spilled over their banks, submerging homes, sweeping away vehicles, and forcing mass evacuations. The situation remains critical as emergency teams struggle to contain the rising water and protect lives and property in some of the country's most vulnerable regions. In the port city of Durrës, once a hub of commerce and daily life on the Adriatic, the scale of the flooding has been extraordinary. In the lowest-lying neighborhoods alone, preliminary data from local emergency headquarters indicates that around 800 homes have been inundated, with water levels rising above household thresholds and cutting off access to streets and essential services. At least 304 people have already been evacuated from the worst affected sectors, though authorities warn that the total number of displaced persons may rise as additional assessments are completed. Entire families have been relocated to temporary shelters, their belongings soaked, and their routines abruptly halted as floodwaters lapped at doorsteps and filled backyards. In some districts, even critical institutions like the local prison have been overtaken by water. The first floor of the Durrës penitentiary remains submerged, and officials have taken the extraordinary step of evacuating inmates to higher floors as high-capacity pumps work non-stop to remove water from the facility. Classrooms across the city remain closed, with school playgrounds and sports fields still under standing water, making safe resumption of lessons impossible while the crisis persists. The causes of the catastrophe are stark and multifaceted. Intense rainfall accompanied by poor drainage infrastructure has overwhelmed the region's sewage and collector systems, leading to urban flooding that outstrips the capacity of roads, culverts, and stormwater channels. In former marsh areas and neighborhoods built atop soft soils, the water has no outlet, leaving entire residential zones submerged for extended periods. The malfunctioning of critical infrastructure, exacerbated by aging systems and rapid urbanization, has played a central role in turning a severe weather event into a prolonged disaster. Meanwhile, in the historic city of Gjirokastër, located high in the southern hills, the crisis has taken on a dramatic, almost cinematic scale. Overflow from the Fico stream has turned streets into rushing rivers, and neighborhoods once busy with daily commerce now sit under feet of muddy water. In the Varash and 18 Statori districts alone, numerous homes and businesses have been overtaken by the flood, with cars stranded, submerged, or carried along by the swift currents. Debris and stones have been ripped from mountain slopes and deposited across thoroughfares, blocking roads and hampering emergency movement. Many local shopkeepers and families have worked tirelessly to clear water and mud from their properties, but with rain still falling intermittently and water levels fluctuating, every effort feels like a race against the next surge. Across the affected regions, roads that once connected towns and villages have become impassable. In some rural areas near Kukës and Leza, transportation lifelines are cut off by washed-out bridges, swollen streams, and mudslides triggered by the saturated ground. Main transport arteries such as the Durrës-Tirana highway, normally a lifeline for commuters and freight, have seen water climb over the asphalt, disrupting travel and isolating communities during peak flood flow. Authorities of Albania have mobilized a broad emergency response. Civil protection forces, national security personnel, and specialized rescue units are deployed across multiple regions to assist residents, enforce evacuation orders, and manage the removal of water from homes and public facilities. High-capacity suction pumps, rescue boats, and heavy vehicles are being employed to clear inundated zones and reinforce embankments. In many towns, local defense and emergency support personnel are working around the clock to shore up weakened riverbanks and clear debris from flood choke points. Despite these efforts, the impact on daily life remains severe. In Durrës suburbs such as former Kanita, Spitaya, Nishtula, and other low-lying zones, water remains too deep for regular travel, stranding vehicles and rendering sidewalks and residential streets navigable only by boat or wading through chest-high water. Businesses in the industrial market and commercial sectors have suffered massive losses as goods were destroyed and valuable equipment was left submerged. Many property owners now face the daunting task of drying out homes, salvaging possessions, and repairing structural damage once the water finally begins to recede. The agricultural sector, too, feels the shock of the floods. While much of the immediate focus has been on urban centers, in surrounding rural districts, farmland has been left waterlogged, with crops destroyed and fertile soil washed away. Land that once supported seasonal planting now lies under water or thick mud, raising concerns that this year's agricultural output may be significantly impacted. Pastoral communities and smallholder farmers watch anxiously as livestock shelter areas fill with water, forcing relocation or containment measures to keep animals safe from drowning or disease. Further complicating rescue and recovery efforts, multiple municipalities report periodic power outages as floodwater encroaches on electrical infrastructure. Fallen trees and saturated soil have contributed to damage in the regional grid, leaving many neighborhoods without lighting, heating, or reliable communications. Supplementary generators are in use at key emergency sites, but prolonged outages have added strain to both rescue efforts and civilian comfort during this crisis. Daily routines across entire districts have ground to a halt. Public transportation networks are suspended where buses can no longer navigate flooded streets. Markets and shops that remained open during the early stages of the flooding have shut their doors as water levels rise and safety concerns grow. Healthcare facilities in affected zones remain fully operational, but medical personnel report rising cases of waterborne illnesses and injuries related to slips, falls, and flood exposure as residents attempt to navigate submerged environments and begin cleanup operations. Amid these harrowing scenes, the government's handling of the disaster has come under intense scrutiny. Some voices have called for the formal declaration of a nationwide state of natural disaster, arguing that the scale of destruction demands coordinated resources and compensation measures for affected families. Estimates from initial assessments suggest that in the Durrës district alone, as many as 4,000 buildings, including homes, commercial structures, and public facilities, have been affected to varying degrees, with material losses already running into millions in local currency. But beyond numbers, the crisis has sparked deep frustration and anxiety among citizens facing uncertain timelines for recovery and inadequate infrastructure to cope with such extreme weather events. As public debate continues, official emergency channels maintain a steady flow of updates and advisories, urging residents to stay alert, avoid unnecessary movement, and heed evacuation and safety instructions. Civil protection authorities emphasize that while floodwaters may have slowed in some areas, risks remain high, particularly where drainage is blocked and water has nowhere to drain. Secondary storms on the horizon could compound the crisis and undo fragile progress made in receding water levels. In the mountainous regions near Tepelena and along the Vjosa River basin, water levels are elevated and overflow remains possible, threatening homes and farms. Landslides and rockfall have been reported in the Gjirokastër district as the saturated soil gives way under the persistent weight of rain. In parts of Leza, fields and lowland zones remain submerged, with local officials estimating thousands of hectares of agricultural land underwater and significant economic damage already done for the year's crop cycle. Even as floodwaters shift and recede, the human toll is beginning to emerge in stark detail. The emotional weight of displacement, material loss, and disruption to community life resonates deeply. Families who only days ago went about normal daily routines now find themselves navigating chest-high water, attending to relatives in temporary shelters, and attempting to salvage what they can from damaged homes. Many speak of nights spent listening to the sound of rushing waters, unable to sleep, watching anxiously for the worst to escalate. These are not isolated stories but a collective narrative unfolding across Albania, from Durrës and Gjirokastër to Leza, Shkodër, Kukës, and beyond. The flood disaster is a wake-up call to the reality that extreme weather events are no longer rare outliers but recurring threats demanding urgent attention, proactive planning, and resilient infrastructure investment. Yet amid the destruction and chaos, there are also small testaments to human resilience. Neighbors wade through water to help one another move belongings to higher ground. Volunteers join rescue teams to distribute food and warm blankets. Local firefighters and emergency workers labor hour after hour in freezing water and mud, driven by a singular mission to protect life in the face of overwhelming conditions. As Albania begins the long road toward recovery, the focus remains on life safety, restoring essential infrastructure, and ensuring that communities can rebound from one of the most severe flood crises in recent history. The scale of the event has already reshaped towns and villages, leaving lasting impressions on landscapes and lives. In a world increasingly shaped by extreme weather, staying informed, prepared, and connected is essential. And for those who want the fullest picture of unfolding global disasters, real-time updates, in-depth analysis, and frontline reporting matter now more than ever. Cataclysm TV is dedicated to bringing you those lived realities, every flooded street, every rescue effort, and every community that rises to face nature's fiercest moments. If you want comprehensive, real-time coverage of this crisis and others like it, if you want to see how communities endure and how disasters unfold across the globe, then don't just watch, be part of the informed, resilient community. Stay with Cataclysm TV, share these stories, subscribe so you never miss an update, and join us as we continue to document the world's most powerful and heartbreaking events, because every storm has a story, and every story deserves to be told.